Well, tonight, Governor Tim Walz is asking Americans to stand with Minneapolis after what he calls a reckless shooting by ICE. Walz says his administration will work to bring accountability and justice for what happened today. During a press conference, he says the BCA has officially taken over the investigation, and he has activated the State Operation Emergency Center as well as Minnesota's Homeland Security to assist. Walz says he will not allow Minnesota and our communities to become a prop in a national political fight.
To Minnesotans, I say this: I feel your anger. I'm angry. They want a show. We can't give it to them. We cannot. If you protest and express your First Amendment rights, please do so peacefully, as you always do.
Walz also had some strong words for President Trump and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, saying, quote, "You've done enough."
And Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem back in Minneapolis tonight after learning of the shooting and standing firm that the ICE agent acted within his duty.
Northern News Now's Capitol reporter Quinn Gorham breaks it down.
Federal and state investigators are currently looking into a shooting that took place this morning in Minneapolis. And while those investigations are underway, authorities are taking steps across the board to respond. Demonstrators could be seen in Minneapolis for much of the day Wednesday. In the late afternoon, Governor Tim Walz told the press that he'd readied the National Guard and was closely monitoring the situation. Meanwhile, state and federal authorities continue to stand at odds, according to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Noem explained that many of the details of Wednesday's shooting remain under investigation at this moment. The secretary claimed that Minneapolis authorities don't have a history of cooperating with immigration operations.
I would encourage them to work with us, that we could form a partnership that would make sure that individuals have the opportunity to have a safe Minneapolis.
In the meantime, Noem also confirming earlier tonight that immigration enforcement operations would continue in Minneapolis, seemingly undeterred by the events that unfolded earlier. We're expecting more reaction from local and federal sources as more details on today's shooting become clear. In St. Paul, I'm Quinn Gorham.
Well, Northeast Minnesota's Republican congressman is responding to the ICE shooting tonight, blaming Twin Cities Democrats. Rep. Pete Stauber posted on social media saying in part, quote, "When Twin Cities politicians spew hateful rhetoric about our law enforcement for months, it gives their constituencies permission to violently attack my brothers and sisters in uniform. The events of today are the result Minnesotans deserve, the rule of law, and encourages de-escalation and cooperation." Now, we did reach out to the congressman, who is a former police officer, to clarify that after seeing the video, whether he agrees with the administration's account of what took place and whether he believes the use of lethal force by ICE was proper. We've not heard back.